All right, welcome to this session. The focus will be mainly on your breathing, which it always is in yoga, isn't it? So the kind of breathing is ujjayi breathing, which is the sort of breathing that we create by closing off just a little bit the back of the throat or the back of the mouth. And it sounds like this. So you might now, in a seated position, just practice some of that ujjayi breathing, getting into the swing of a deep inhalation and a deep exhalation. And we'll continue with this now on the mat. So take a lying down position on your mat, on your back, with your legs bent and your feet on the floor. And as we nestle in for a comfortable lying down position, have your feet a little distance away from your buttocks and feet hip width apart. And then just leave your hands down by your side and begin, if you haven't kept the rhythm of that breathing, begin again. Deep inhalation and deep exhalation with ujjayi breathing. And then just as another anchor for your attention, you might incorporate a slight pelvic tilt. So when I exhale, I tilt my pelvis towards me, my tailbone towards me. When I inhale, the abdomen inflates and then the pelvis moves away. Just a little rocking movement, just kind of nice for the base of your spine, your sacrum, like that, without flattening your back. And then let's add something else to this still. Bring your knees towards your chest and cup your hands around the tops of your knees. And on your inhalations, bring your knees away from you, your arms are straight. And then on your exhalation, draw the knees towards you. The Sanskrit name for this is Apanasana. And especially on those exhalations, you're just creating a little bit more energy through the abdominal pelvic region. Even when you inhale and the arms are straight and the legs away from you, see if you can bring the breath up into the chest as well as the abdomen. And on the exhalation, without flattening the back, as I was saying. Place your left foot on the floor behind your left buttock. Slip your hands around the back of your right thigh and then extend the right leg up towards the ceiling. A little stretch behind the knee and a slight knee bend, releasing that stretch. And then let's do exhale, extend the leg and the knee. Inhale, release from that stretch. Exhale, pressing the back of the thigh into your hands. And inhale, releasing from that effort. So following what you're doing with the ujjayi breathing, or encompassing what you're doing with your breathing. The next time the leg is straight, then have a look at your right foot And circle your toes, your foot bones, and your ankle. And circling the other way. And then resting right foot on the floor. And the feet are still that hip width apart. Bend your left leg in. Slip your hands behind the left thigh onto the hamstrings. And then extend the leg up. And a little bend of the knee and a little extension. So what we can do here is do a strengthening movement as you press in to your hands. The leg straightens, but the quadriceps switch on, the front thigh muscles. And that's a good early movement for warming up your leg muscles. One more straight leg, and then holding that position and circling your foot. One side might be different than the other, it usually is, and the other way. My left foot circles a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, wonkily. It's a little wonky. And then left foot to the floor. And then pause for a moment. We'll need a couple of props here, and that would be a foam block, and a yoga strap. So let's just take the foam block for a moment. And in the spirit of doing some more to warm up the legs and the hips, place the block on the outside of your right hip, on the lowest end, and then bring your right knee into your chest and extend that leg up. Rest the flat of your right palm on the outside of your right leg and let the right leg move to the right and the left knee drop to the left. As we go like this, we don't want the weight to shift on the back of the pelvis, so you're even on the right side and the left side of your sacrum and your upper buttocks. And then we're giving that right leg a good stretch out to the side. That block, when you touch to the block, then stimulate the outer hip muscle, the outer thigh muscle. So that's what's holding the leg up, not so much your hand. And then after that, what feels like a groin stretch for me, bring that leg up to the vertical. And let's switch sides and place the block on the outside of the left hip. Bring the left knee in towards you. Support the leg with your left hand on the outside of your left thigh. Let your right knee drop to the right and take your left leg to the left. Now you don't want to tip over to that side, so the block is reminding you not to tilt to the left. And there's equal weight on the back of your left pelvis as to the right. Let's bring the knee up, the leg up, and place your left foot onto the floor. And we're going to roll over and come into all fours kneeling. And work with a little bit of emphasis on abdominal muscles. So all fours kneeling. You're on your hands and knees. You could practice here just allowing the spine to dip and to lift. Back into the swing of the breathing. Inhale, letting the spine drop towards the floor. Exhaling, drawing the navel up towards the spine with the arms straight. All right, and then taking pause where the spine is in a relatively level position. Look at your hands and add more pressure to the backs of the knuckles, and that will save your wrists. So if we keep all the weight onto the wrists, sometimes that becomes a bit excessive. So divide the weight towards your fingers. It strengthens your fingers anyway. Let's work through Ujjayi breathing again. And on the inhalation, lift your knee off the floor. I'm lifting my left knee off the floor. Bring it towards your chest. Exhale. Inhale, extend that leg behind you. And my leg is lifted off of the floor, but my hips are level. Exhale, bring it in. Inhale, stretch it out. One more time. Tuck in. Inhale, leg out. And replacing left knee on the floor. Back to a centered position and starting on the other side. Exhale in. Inhale out. Exhale, tuck. Inhale, open back. One more time. And inhale, extended. Both knees on the floor, hip width apart. Take a rest for your wrist and slide your hands back, slide your elbows back. Flip your hands over and open and close your hands a few times. That's just a nice movement for your flexion of your hands. And then replacing your hands again. Let's do the combined movement. So what you did with your right leg and tucking in, we're going to do with left elbow. So right knee lifts, comes in towards your chest. Left elbow bends and comes in towards your chest. Extend those opposite limbs away from each other and then bring them in. Keep your breathing even here. That's what's so important, so that you can keep your balance. Last time in, and both hands down. Now, you've got a baseline. You know how that went. Was there some swaying side to side? Let's see what the opposite side is like. And we bend left knee in, exhale, right elbow in, and then extending arm away from the leg away from the arm, with the breath. Maybe even your breath might get a bit wobbly here. And then 2 hands down, and then let's take a break again, drawing the hips back towards the floor. They don't have to go all the way to the floor, but towards the floor. And then turn your hands upside down again. Stretch your palm from little finger to the thumb, tip of the thumb. And let's come back to all fours kneeling and into downward facing dog pose with your breath. Inhaling and exhaling. Let's warm up with kneeling again. Inhale, cat pose. Exhale, child's pose. Inhale back to cat. Exhale to dog. One more kneeling. Child's pose. And then draw your hands back towards your knees. You're upright now in the kneeling position. And let's work with a few abdominal exercises, lying on your back. With your feet on the wall in this manner. So I'm fairly close to the wall. And so when I raise my feet up onto the wall, I can create a right angle behind my knee. Just kind of hard to see when you're lying down. So just using your sense of proprioception, where your body is in space, that right angle behind your knee and a right angle at your hips. So there you are. You're propped up, your feet are supported, and let's work with the pelvic tilts again, that little rocking movement through the pelvis. Tilting the pelvis posteriorly and anteriorly, just rocking back. And there is an influence of what that does on the abdominal muscles. So feel that, see if you feel that for yourself. All right, let's add something else. Place your hands onto the front of your thighs. And at the same time as you exhale, that nice long Ujjayi breath, press your hands into your thighs and your thighs into your hands. And then inhale and release. It's not continuous pressure. And exhale again and feel, once again, the influence of the breath onto the tilt of the pelvis as well. And then last of all, we can take this as a progression. Imagine that you're drawing your feet towards the floor. Your feet are glued to the wall, but as though you were drawing the heels down towards the floor. Exhaling. Inhale, release from that effort. Exhale. And release. One more. Exhale, pressure. Inhale, letting go. And then bring your feet all the way down to the floor and roll onto the side to a seated position. So I'm seated with my hands supporting behind my buttocks so that I can still sit with a straight spine. If I take my hands away, then I tend to round my back and slump a bit. So we're going to keep the chest nicely lifted, the shoulder blades in, and almost like a back bend, lifting up the sternum, casting your gaze up. And then let's bring the feet onto the wall. And at this point, my legs are straight, my feet on the wall, my toes at eye level, and my hands still supporting me. As I do this, I'm going to emphasize breathing again. Feeling the influence of the breath through the abdominal pelvic region. And then I'm going to progress to hold at the backs of my thighs and see whether I can still get that sense of lifting up. And if I take this to a supported Navasana pose, boat pose with my arms out, extended at the elbow, then I started to use my hip flexors, and that kind of defeats the purpose. So I'm going to use my hands behind me again and bend my legs with my feet still on the wall. And in that position, I've pretty much turned those hip flexors off, and I can use my abdominal muscles a little bit more. So we could progress this one stage more and move completely away from the wall and take that tabletop position with the legs. I do better if I hold the backs of my legs in terms of keeping the abdominals engaged. But if you're doing very fine here and can extend the arms without tightening the quads, then go that way. I'm going to still hold on here. And that's probably enough work there. Let's bring the feet to the floor and take rest with the back completely supported, lying down. Let's do just a couple of gentle bridges to extend out the hip flexors and to stretch out the abdominal muscles. Just a few up and down bridges, lifting up, releasing down. All right, and let's move on to a standing position near to the wall and come all the way up. And let's work the legs a little bit more. We'll be doing some standing poses in a bit. So just waking up these leg muscles a little bit more. Stand with your back supported onto the wall. And it's the whole of the back of your torso and the back of your head. I've stepped my feet out about 35 or 40 centimeters away from the wall. And that gives me space to come into a squat supported at the wall. And we'll hold this for, let's say, 10 breaths. Let's see how we go in that squat position for 10 breaths. There's a little space in the back waist away from the wall, so we're not trying to press the whole of the back into the wall. Let's say 1 or 2 more breaths, inhaling, exhaling, Ujjayi breathing, and then slide up the wall and pause there. We'll do 1 more of those. I like to rest my hands on the front thighs because sometimes the quadriceps don't get quite activated, and I can feel them as I do my wall slide down, and then remind myself to keep them drawn up, especially right at the top where the hip fold is. And there we are. See what a difference it might make in your stance if you transfer your weight onto your heel bones. So not so much towards the forefoot, but into my heels now. Connects me more with the back of my pelvis, my buttock bones. And then let's take a break and come up. And might be in order to give the legs a bit of a shake out. Shake a leg, shake the other leg. Good. And then we're not quite finished at the wall. This is a very good, I'll come out for a different angle. A very good abdominal exercise, strengthening exercise, and a balancing exercise all in one. So I'm back at the wall and supported for the back body, but my feet not so far out, so only about a foot away from the wall. Then balance your weight onto your right leg and lift your left foot off the floor and place it on the wall. My left foot's kind of underneath the height of my left buttock, and the hips come back into center. So pressing my left foot into the wall, my standing leg engaged, I'm going to leave the wall all in one piece, my head, my shoulders, my buttocks, and push away. And then simply come back towards the wall. You heard a little bounce there, so my head reached first. I'm going to see if I can bring buttocks and shoulders and head away from the wall all together. The feet are strong here. The legs must be engaged. And there's a lot of control in this. Let's switch sides. So because of the amount of talking I'm doing, you might be more aware of your breath, but that is very helpful if you can keep the Ujjayi breathing supporting you. So initially, my hands have been on the wall, and you can do your push away with your hands on the wall, or leave the wall pressing your right foot and coming away from the wall, and then back to wall, all in one piece, buttocks, shoulders, and head. A little bounce there, and pushing and supporting left leg, right foot on the wall, coming back slowly, slowly, slowly. I'm going to go one more time. I think this will be my best go. Sometimes you just have to figure out what the body needs to do. It's just practice. Yes. And then coming away from the wall. And as I said, we'll work a few standing poses. So take a position on your mat, right in the center, and Tadasana. Take a relaxed standing position with your feet a little bit apart. The backs of your knees, let them be soft. The elbow joint be soft. Drop your shoulders. And then take a few of those Ujjayi breathings to connect with the core muscles. Let's practice balancing in a very simple way. Allow your weight to come towards your forefoot and lean forward slightly. And then opposite and lean back. Almost as though you're going to fall forward or back, but not quite to that edge. And forward and back. And your body sort of knows how to do this, so you don't fall. And then to one side, and to the other, and one side, and opposite side. Good. Find your center position again. Relax those muscles that may have tightened up in defending your center position. And then bring your arms up overhead. In a kind of V position for your arms. So the arms out on diagonal. For me, this helps me connect more with my shoulder blades. And feel the outer shoulder blades stretching towards your wrists, towards the little finger side of your hand. And then bring your arms alongside your head. And let's do a warm-up for the lateral body and extend the right arm up, release, left arm up, kind of walking your shoulders, one arm, other arm. Beautiful, and stretching. Stretching all the fascia on that lateral line of the body. And then lower your arms and pause for Tadasana again. Let's do one more balancing workout here. It's pretty simple. It's the image of a clock face. And if we do this with taking the right foot forward, going to tap on 12 o'clock. And then back to 6 o'clock. And short tap and 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. 12 to 6 and then back aligning your feet again. Let's go opposite. Left leg, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And then feet together. Notice if you were having to look down to see where those clock numbers were. And if possible, let's keep the gaze level, looking out towards the horizon. I'm going to give you a different view. So we'll go in this manner. Let's start with the left foot. And left foot, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and feet together. Right foot, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and feet together. I threw a little curveball in there. And then shake out your legs. Good. Tadasana. I'd like to work that lateral line of the body in a different pose before we start all of the standing poses I have in mind. So take up your block and take a kneeling position. That I call up kneeling. So you're kneeling but you're upright. Take a kneeler if you need to, if your knees are a little bit exposed and vulnerable, kneeling on them, so you might need some more padding. And then take your right leg out to the right side, straight. I've got my toes pointing forward, but you can turn them out slightly. Best to keep them pointing forward if you can. Place the block on the left side at an arm length distance from you, because that's the direction that we're going first. And then lean out towards the left side. Place your left hand on the top of the block. But be mindful of your right leg and keep the knee extended. And then see how we go here to extend the right arm overhead. I feel like I'm a little too raised in this position, and you can adjust your posture too, or your block too, to suit your posture. And I've lowered it down to mid-range. And then let's go all the way, and this is a good warm-up for a couple of the standing poses, and extend that right arm over your right ear. Good. Roll your shoulders back. Beautiful. And then come all the way up. And without changing legs yet, keep that right leg straight. Rest the right hand, palm upwards, on your right leg. And lean out towards that right side. It's mainly lateral, so it's not a forward bend. And then bring the left arm up towards the ceiling. Reach for the ceiling, and then extend the left arm in the same direction as your right leg and your right arm. Keep the breath flowing. Keep to Ujjayi breathing if you can here. And then windmill the arms all the way up and down to your side. And let's switch directions. Take a moment, and where you've placed your left leg out to the left, have your heel line up with the front of your knee. And then let's go right and reach for the block on the right side. I'm going to knock it down a peg here, and right hand supporting you, right arm and left arm up. Good. Keep your shoulders back. They easily will move in the direction towards your head. And then we take the arm overhead for that final stretch. And we call this a lateral stretch because it's the side body that's getting opened. Inhale, come up. And let's go opposite. So the leg stays where it is. Turn your left palm up towards the ceiling as you're ready. And if this is uncomfortable in your shoulder for whatever reason, you can shorten the lever of that raised arm and keep your fingertips onto your shoulder. And then we're going towards the left side stretch. I can feel I must be tighter on my left ribs and my left waist because this is really opening up, or I should say right waist and right ribs. Inhale, come up, and let's close the legs together. Good. And come up to standing. And keep the block handy in front of your mat. We won't use it just yet. And then stand with your feet slightly apart in Tadasana. And we give Tadasana its own time and space as an important pose. Even it feels like we're not doing very much. Build in the sense of grounding through your feet and keep the softness behind the backs of your knees. Allow the shoulders to release down without pushing them down, just let them go. And let's take Trikonasana and step out and turn your feet to the right. When you bring your arms up at shoulder height, extend right out to the tips of your fingers and feel well anchored and grounded through your feet again. Let's take a stretch out to the right side, and you've done that good work of opening up your lateral ribs and just merely dropping the right hand beneath your shoulder and the left arm is above the right arm. Good. Listen to your breath again, that soft and sibilant sound of inhalation and exhalation, and feel the influence of it on your core muscles through the abdomen and pelvis. Good. Roll your shoulders back, and let's take an inhalation up, and rotate your feet in, and then all the way around to the left side. Lateral movement to the left and extending out over the left leg. And there's a point where you meet resistance, and at that point, bring your left hand down beneath your left shoulder and your right arm up towards the ceiling. And then even here, there might be a little bit more in your lateral movement. So see if that's so. I can move my left ribs a little farther to the left, and actually my hand comes down a little bit lower. That's unforced. I didn't plan that, but it just happened from my adjustment. Inhale and come up. And turn your feet front and center and step back in to Tadasana. Once more, listening to your breath, creating a sense of stability and relaxation at the same time. We can do another lateral movement in a standing pose in Parsva Konasana. So do take your step out and your block. Turn your feet to the right. We're going to take a lunge position, but we haven't really done very much of this. So leave your block in front of your right heel, and with your hands on your hips, take a few knee bends. Bending and straightening that right leg until it feels nice and smooth, like a gliding movement. And the right knee comes back a little bit. On the knee bend as the left hip comes slightly forward. All right, let's hold the knee bend, the lunge position to the right. And do extend your arms now. Good. And reaching out towards wherever you are, your side walls of your room, the tips of your fingers. And then reach the right hand down to the top of the block. I've got it on the high end in front of my right heel, and the heel of the hand onto my block. The back of my right arm against my right knee. And then let's take it laterally and take the left arm overhead. And oftentimes we've brought our head into forward head position. See if you can bring the back of your head back a little bit. Lift your tailbone. Observe your breathing. And then let's take the block with us. Inhale. Raise that left arm. Come all the way up. Straighten the leg. Turn your feet to the left side. Set yourself up well with the block and your hands onto your hips and bend and straighten the left leg. Is it different than the first side? Does it track in? Can you rotate the knee out a little bit on your knee bend and open up the groin? All right, let's take the Parsvakonasana position with your left hand on the top of the block and your right arm up towards the ceiling. As I mentioned previously, if your shoulder is tight on one side, you find that your arm is in front of the line of your body, keep your elbow bent and then just bring the shoulder back. Otherwise, we're taking the right arm overhead and observing the breath. And then press back into your right foot and bring yourself up with your right arm, straight left leg, and place the block in front of you once more. Step all the way back in. Tadasana. Feel your shoulders when they relax. They're like a soft mantle of cloth at the top of your skeleton. Shoulders relaxed, shoulder blades. All right, let's face towards the short end of your mat, and stand with your feet once more in a little distance between your feet, Tadasana. Bring your hands onto your hips and take a step back with your right leg. And preparing for Warrior One pose. Let's do this with our elbows crooked instead of stretching the arms overhead. So take your knee bend, right leg bends, bring your arms up and into this position, sometimes called cactus position. And then let's not hold it, but use your breath to exhale, bring your arms down, straighten your front leg. Inhale, and we'll keep the breath flowing and the gaze lifts. Exhale, arms down by your side. Inhale to exhale with your Ujjayi breath. And we're ready to switch sides and step up and left foot back. Good. So how far back do you take that leg? A good rule of thumb I've discovered is if you can still keep your frontal hips parallel and facing directly forward. So not dropping one hip or bringing one forward or one back. So they're still in a line. And once you've achieved that, sometimes if you take your leg back too far, then it turns your hips out. And then here we go. We're going to bend, crook the elbows, and then bring them down and straighten. Inhaling, full breath. Enjoy the depth of your breath. And last one. And step up. We'll have one more round and just change the position of the arms by straightening them. And it's right foot back. And bending your legs. This time extend your arms at the elbows. Extend as though you were able to stretch the arms from the outer shoulder blades. I've got a hinge at my front hip, slightly forward, and the arms slightly forward in front of the line of my legs. And reaching out to the tips of my fingers, chest up, lengthening the frontal body from the hips to the fingertips. And then release down and step up, and opposite leg back. Get that nice evenness through the hips, and then as you bend the front leg and bring the arms up, and that slight hinge at the top of the front hip. Reaching back the back leg, bring it alive, and tilt your chin up, look up. Good, lower your arms, step up, and shake it out. All right, and we're up to our last of the standing poses, Prasarita Padottanasana, wide leg forward fold. So let's take that wide leg position. Lift one heel, bring it out a little bit, other heel, bring it out. Rest your hands onto your hips and consolidate, relax your shoulders. Take time to feel that sense of groundedness through your footprints. That's your right one, your left one. And then slide your hands into the hip fold at the front of the legs, that mediates between the top thighs and the lower pelvis. And take your forward bend from there. Take the block on the high end in front of you and rest the heels of your hands onto the top of the block. Let's not go anywhere just yet, but you might think of a few images. Let the lungs inflate like helium balloons and help you lift the top of your chest and broaden your collarbones. Feel where your weight falls onto your feet and see if you can create the sense that it's at the forefoot and the heel with equal pressure. In your breathing, Ujjayi breathing, especially on the exhalations, we don't want the abdomen to fall forward because it's going to pull on the lumbar spine. Lift the tailbone a little bit. Place just the left hand onto the top of the block. Bring the right hand onto your right hip and turn your chest to the right side. But instead of looking towards the right, look down at your left hand. At the same time, your hand is still onto your hip. That's your right hand. Draw that shoulder back. Draw the elbow back. And then begin to turn your head to the right side. And if you feel prepared to, and you're keeping that left arm straight, bring the right arm up towards the ceiling. If that's a bridge too far, keep your hand down to your hip and merely draw your shoulder back, your elbow back. Good. Looking down again and swapping right hand for left hand onto the block, right hand, right hip. We're just going right into that rotation, but with the head still looking, the eyes looking down at your right hand. Straighten that right arm a little bit, lift up out of it, and then see if you, as you look towards the left side now, you can turn a little bit more. And if you've been able to do that and that shoulder is fine, extend up the left arm towards the ceiling. And then bring your hands down onto the block. Pause there. And let's take a little break, but I'd like to come back to this pose again. And heel, toe, bringing your feet to center. Bend your knees slightly and inhale, come up with your arms by your side to Tadasana. That's such a lovely pose, but we have been doing it in rotation. Let's do it as a forward bend stretch. So step out once more. And without the block this time, and as an as-need basis. So if possible, bring your hands down to the floor. At this point, you can be onto your fingertips. And if that feels like it's not as well supported, then bring the block back in. We're just going to work the hands forward, or if you're using the block, take the block forward, so that you're going to do this almost ridiculously wide leg dog pose, and walking the hands out at a distance. And this is a good place to observe your breathing and to keep the weight towards the outer edges of your feet, almost like you're trying to push the mat away from you because it's a little bit wrinkled in the center. All right, for the last part of this, walk your hands in or bring the block closer to you and release the trunk down. We're dividing the weight between the forefoot and the heel, and feel your footing, so important. Feel your breath moving. And walking your hands out a little ways again. Heel, toe, back to center. Bend your knees over your ankles and come up with just your arms by your side slowly. Well done. All right. For the next part, we're going to practice some bridges. Take a block and your yoga strap and lie yourself down face up. Let's see. Now, what to do with the belt? Make a little loop of the belt. So we're binding it. And I just tried this last week in a session with my friend and colleague and found it very interesting. So if your belt loop is just about as small as you can make it, you're going to slip it now over your feet and onto your ankles. It's an ankle belt now. So we're not tightening it to the point where the feet are all the way together, but they're definitely not hip width apart. They're closer in than that. And then in your reclined position, take up the block and place it between your knees. And it's on the narrowest end. Hugging in against the block and pressing out against the ankle belt. And with equal pressure. Now, you could just press as hard as you could, almost like you're going to change the shape of the block. But let's not go that extreme. And keep about 20% of what you're capable of. A little pressure on the knees, a little press out on the ankle strap. And then let go of that effort. We're going to use it when we lift up into our first small bridge. Actually, we did some bridges earlier, so this is just with a different emphasis. Keep your arms by your side, palms downwards, and then press in, knees, press out against the resistance of the belt, and start to do your lift off. As you come up, we want to keep equal work with the resistance of the belt and also the pressure onto the block. Even. And then lower back down. Take pause, and then this time, and maybe it's harder to notice while I was talking, I'll be quiet. See which of the muscles are engaged as you come into this version of the bridge. So ankles, knees, and coming up. Just a little or more as it suits you. And then down to the ground. So it seems like almost all the work is in the leg muscles and in the outer hips and buttocks. One more time. But what is it that you are experiencing? What is your experience of using the props? And last time coming down. And then let's free ourselves of all of the extra bits of the belt and the block off to the side. And in these subsequent bridges, we'll do 3 of them. See if you can get a sense of that musculature again and also your breath. So we'll take an inhalation and then exhalation and come up. Whatever height you get to is fine for you. And then coming down on another long exhalation. And what does the work feel like when you're propless? And are there some supporting muscles that you can switch on with just the influence of your breath and your mind to connect with those parts? One more time. This last time when we come up, feel your footing and feel the knees tracking straight, so the thigh bones moving towards the knees, away from the pelvis. And here we go, coming all the way down to ground and touching down. And I think it would be a really lovely next move and appropriate here to do windscreen wiper and stepping your feet out nice and wide. Move your arms away from the sides of your body and let your knees drop right and left. It seems like there's an instinct for me, I've seen this with other people too, just to rotate your head in the opposite direction from your knees. All right, and let's say the knees go to the right this time. Let's add an arm movement. So knees are to the right. Take your left arm overhead. My left buttock is lifted off of the floor. And I'm getting one of those lateral line stretches all along my left side body. And then let's go opposite arm, knees to the left side, right arm overhead. The right buttock is lifted, and a long and lovely side body stretch on the right. And then 2 more if you like, or I should say 1 each side. If you think about what you're doing for your internal body here, all the organs that get neatly stretched by what you're offering. And then we're back in the center, and there's the block there. I want to keep my belt too, and slip your block underneath your back at the base of your spine so that your sacrum is well supported. I've got the block on the lowest end again. I think that works the best for support because you've got a bigger area, surface area there. Then take your belt as well, and instead of having your very tiny loop, then open it out maximally. In other words, the loop is going to be as wide as possible. And when you've done that, and you've got this wide loop, then bend your knees into your chest and slip the belt around your feet. and then open out into that width that you've created. I don't know why, but I'm having belt troubles today. So when I do this, I've got my legs elevated. They're in a splits configuration, and I'm pressing the outer spine of my foot into the edge of the belt. Always make sure that you do feel the best support through the prop that you're using there on your sacrum. So by all means, come down and change the way that you're lying on it if it's not comfortable. And then we're working the pose, so pushing out into the outer edge of your feet, and then feeling the various muscles of the legs and the hips working again. And certainly a groin stretch, the inner thigh stretch. Just hold for a couple more breaths and lift your big toes a little higher than your little toes. Reach for the ceiling. And then let's give that all a break and take the belt away. Well, we could practice an inversion here just for a minute or two. If I want to keep my legs to the vertical in this manner, I could hold the belt again onto the balls of the feet. Or because I've got a fairly straight leg stretch by dint of my hamstrings, I could just rest my hands at the backs of my thighs or freely extend my legs up towards the ceiling without the prop. Remember an earlier exercise that we did at the wall where the hands were at the front of the thighs and the feet pressing into the wall. You could have your hands at the front of your thighs, your quadriceps, and press your thigh muscles into your hands into your thighs. And this time, your feet pressing up towards the ceiling. All right, and then let's go into bent knees. Let your thighs drop towards your ribs. Let your feet just dangle, so there's no work in that. And then you could hold at the front of your shins, or maybe clasp your hands there. But do move your sitting bones, the bottom of your buttocks, your tailbone towards the floor. So once again, avoid flattening the lumbar curve. And 2 feet on the floor, and slip the block away. When you bring your hips down to the floor and you're supported again, just notice whether it still feels like you can feel the shape of the block there on your lower back. And we just want that area to widen and broaden and stretch out again. And this is the time when we can move into the yoga relaxation. So take what you need in all manner of props to make yourself utterly comfortable in a reclining position. Including and especially an eye covering is a good thing. A soft scarf over your eyes, or a yoga blanket, or an eye pillow. Ultimately, we'd have our legs straight, but you can rest the backs of your legs over a bolster if you choose. Or even if this is the most comfortable for you, your legs bent with your feet on the floor behind your buttocks. And then taking time for this most important of the yoga poses. To settle in. And we do that in the main through the back of the body and giving time to feel the support that's there. All parts of the back of the body, from heels to the back of the skull, well supported. If you haven't done it, you might draw your shoulders down and bring the tips of your shoulders nearer to the floor. And we'll do together a special kind of body scan from your feet to your head. And starting with your toes, open and stretch your toes maximally. Give them a big stretch so there's space between as many of them as you can. And then withdraw that effort and the toes find their own level, maybe with a little bit more space between them. And then feeling into your foot bones, the many bones of your right foot and left foot, and coming up into your ankles. And once the feet are completely relaxed, they might turn out a little bit more. Relax the inner arches of your feet. And then giving pause to appreciate and relax the lower legs and the two bones of each lower leg and the muscles that encompass them. And the knees, that those bones mediate between the ankles and the knees, and relaxing the knees on the front and the back and the sides. And maybe the knees even fall out a little bit more. Coming up into the thighs and the heaviness of the thigh bone and feeling it release along with the front thigh muscles, the back thigh muscles, the outer and the inner muscles. And that femur mediates between the knees and the hips, and feeling the top of the femur settling into each hip, right hip, left hip, and releasing and relaxing in the muscles. At the back pelvis, the buttock muscles releasing and broadening. And at the front, the pelvis and the abdominal wall and all of the internal organs releasing into the basin that's formed by the back of the pelvis. And giving a nod to the back muscles that support the length of the spinal column on the right side and the left side, and all the way up to the back of your shoulders. And at the front of the body, at the top of the abdomen, the diaphragm, that moves gently with the inhalation and the exhalation. and mediates between the pelvic abdominal region and the chest, and the front of the chest, the ribs, the sternum, softening and giving space to the underlying organs, the lungs, and the heart. Feel the support for the arms, the upper limbs, the backs of the knuckles, the backs of the hands. Let the elbow joints soften a little bit and recede. And between the elbows and the shoulders, the humerus bone mediates and all the muscles of the upper arms relaxing. Broad across the collarbones and between the top of the neck and the bottom of the neck, a softening there that creates a release into the back of the neck, with the inside, the throat, the walls of the throat relaxed. Maybe a slight swallowing is in order here to free up the throat a little bit more. And finally, relax your facial features. The head is where, in the main, the sense organs are. Your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, all completely and utterly relaxed. Even the scalp over your head and the brain. And having given special care, self-care to all those parts of your body, we're ready to move out of the relaxation, but slowly, and do stay longer if you prefer. And if you're going to be moving, then first bend your legs, extend one arm away from you, and roll onto that side in a curled up fetal position. Bring yourself upright in due course. And have a seat as you're ready. And to complete the practice that we've done all together, let's join hands in front of the sternum, in front of the heart really, and have a gaze downwards, eyes closed or eyes open, into the heart center. Feel your own goodness of your heart, the warmth of your heart, and then extending out to include everyone who's done the practice with us and everyone in general. We say namaste and thank you.